Hi guys, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to talk to you about these. Comma splices occur when a writer mistakenly uses a comma to join two independent clauses. Now, if you're a bit unsure about independent clauses, you might want to take a look at the mini lesson entitled Clauses and Sentences. But in the meantime, here's a quick refresh. Independent clauses can stand on their own as sentences. Here are some examples. I sang, I am excited about the news, Jack has finished watching the movie, the team lost in the final round. Each of these clauses contains what all clauses contain, subjects and verbs. Here are the subjects, and here are the verbs. Dependent clauses, however, cannot stand on their own as sentences. Here are some examples of dependent clauses. Although the movie finished early, because he has passed his driving test, whoever finishes first. Now, each of these contains what all clauses contain, verbs and subjects. But dependent clauses cannot stand on their own as sentences. None of these could possibly stand on its own as a sentence. Now that we've reminded ourselves of the differences between independent and dependent clauses, let's return to comma splices. Take a look at this example. I am going to France by plane, she is taking the ferry, and then the bus. Now what you have here are two independent clauses. I am going to France by plane, she is taking the ferry and then the bus. Each of these could stand on its own as a sentence. The problem here occurs with the punctuation. A comma is never strong enough to separate two independent clauses. We can solve the problem of comma splices in a number of ways. We could split the two clauses into two simple sentences by means of a period. Or we can connect the two independent clauses correctly with a piece of punctuation, in this case the semicolon. Or we could connect the two independent clauses with a comma and a coordinate conjunction. In this case we're using but. And remember, a useful way to recall coordinate conjunctions is the acronym FANBOYS. Of these three ways of solving this problem of the comma splice, I feel this last one is the most successful because it draws the contrast between what's happening in the second independent clause and the first. Comma splices also occur in sentences that contain what are known as conjunctive adverbs. Take a look at these. The conjunctive adverb in the first sentence is however, and therefore is the conjunctive adverb in the second. The comma splice occurs here and here. And the reason is the same as in the previous sentences. This is one independent clause and this is another, but the comma is not strong enough to connect the two. Same thing here. I passed my driving test is one independent clause, therefore I will be able to pick you up is another. This comma is not strong enough to connect two independent clauses. The best way to connect two independent clauses when the second independent clause begins with a conjunctive adverb is by using a semicolon here instead of a comma. One last thing about commas and clauses. Commas can be used to connect an independent clause with a dependent clause. Take a look at these. When I was young, I used to travel to school by bus. Although the wood appeared strong, it snapped easily. Because the weather was inclement, we postponed the game. The comma is correct in the first sentence because you have an independent clause, I used to travel to school by bus, that could stand on its own as a sentence, and it's connected to a dependent clause, when I was young. This could not stand on its own as a sentence, but the comma here is correct because you're connecting an independent clause with a dependent clause. The same thing occurs in the second sentence. The independent clause, it snapped easily, is connected to the dependent clause, which could not stand on its own, by a comma. And then finally, we postponed the game, independent clause, connected to because the weather was inclement, which is a dependent clause, connected with the comma. Finally, take a look at the examples below. 4 of the sentences contain comma splices. One of them contains a correctly used comma. Work out which is which, and then decide how you would fix each of the comma splices. If you're still having trouble with comma splices, you can watch this mini lesson again, or you can go and find one of your English teachers.